Next, we're going to go to content security and speak about the email and security products that Cisco has to offer. So content security, as we stated, we're going to speak about the most common vector attacks, which are going to be the web traffic and email traffic, because mostly what the users do back and forth in the internet is going to be web traffic and email traffic. And of course, likewise, as we stated before, because it's different, it's a different protocol, than each of those two types of traffics have their own, let's say, set of possible attacks or their own vulnerabilities which we have to defend against. So web security threats is going to be usually viruses, malware, data leaking. So by browsing the web, the users can get infected on their endpoints via viruses, malware, whatever, a lot of such, let's say, malicious content. And one problem could be data leaking, because they may get their browsers or computers infected, and data may be leaked without user being aware of to begin with. And of course, employee productivity, because if they, in general, that's why we're going to have proxy firewalls in our network, because most companies have a policy which they could restrict users' internet access to a lot of websites based on the content they're trying to access, or they could restrict the access to the internet on specific hours within the day. And email security threats is going to be likewise via email. A lot of malicious content is being spread, viruses and malware, and likewise data leaking can happen. Either intentionally users sending emails and leaking confidential data from within the company, or just by accident because the computers gets infected and the virus is going to send emails without the user even knowing that that's being done. And of course, other threats via email is going to be spam and phishing, which is going to be that the users get unwanted email, spam email, with a lot of commercials, advertisements, which is going to again affect employee productivity. And also phishing, which means that they're going to get suspicious emails pretending to be from their banking, from their bank, or from their vendor, their car vendor, from their mobile vendor, asking them for some confidential information in there. And of course, because those are the two most common vector attacks, web and email, of course, Cisco has solutions for both of them. Now let's speak about the web security part, where Cisco has two different web security solutions. One on premises, which in general is going to be for fixed endpoints, like computers that in general are going to stay within the network, are not mobile. And for that scope, Cisco has the product which is called the Web Security Appliance. And in cloud, for mobile endpoints, like in general for smartphones, tablets, and also users which are mostly mobile, they are not present in the network but mostly outside of the network, we also want to provide those users with web security. So for that reason, the solution is going to be in cloud, which is a Cisco's product which is called Cloud Web Security. Now the Web Security Appliance is nothing else but an HTTP and HTTPS proxy. It's also an FTP proxy, but it also only supports FTP proxying natively. It supports proxying both natively and over HTTP. So in both cases, the Web Security Appliance can behave like a FTP proxy. And we have two models. It's going to be a physical appliance or a virtual appliance, depending, of course, based on the performance you want from that specific device. You may choose a physical appliance over a virtual appliance, or the other way around, or based on your company's policy. If you mostly use virtualization, you may choose a virtual appliance. So it depends on a lot of aspects. Which model would you choose, the physical one or the virtual one? Regardless of the model, they support the same features, more or less, close to 100% basically. And VSA can be deployed in two modes. So regardless of the model, it can work in the explicit proxy mode or in transparent proxy mode. In explicit proxy, just like the name states, it means that the user, the computers, or the terminal has the proxy configured in the browser. What a transparent proxy means is that it implies that a proxy is going to be transparent from the user's point of view. He doesn't have the proxy configured in the browser, so user is unaware of the proxy. Like if you look in here at this Cisco presentation from Cisco Live, so explicit proxy means that this user has the proxy configured in the browser. So when the user wants to go out on the internet and get access to google.com, for example, the user is actually going to send a request to the web security appliance, get me to google.com. Web security appliance, of course, is going to do its inspections, and if traffic is allowed, then web security appliance is going to initiate another session to google.com. The content is received from google.com, and then the WSA sends the content over to the user. So it's like an inline proxy, if you want to call it that way, explicit proxy. So all traffic is going to go intentionally or explicitly via the web proxy. While in transparent mode, it means that the user doesn't have the proxy configured in the browser. So what happens is that the user is going to actually initiate a session believing it's going to speak directly with google.com. So the user sends the traffic out towards in the internet believing he speaks directly with google.com. But actually a network device from some device from the network which supports specific capability is going to transparently redirect the session to the web security appliance. And a web security appliance is going to, of course, if traffic is allowed, is going to send a session, a request to google.com. Likewise, the content is being received from google.com and then sent to the client directly. So in this case, the user is unaware of the proxy existing in the network. So there's different deployment modes for different designs and scopes. Then cloud web security. So CVS is a cloud proxy for HTTP, HTTPS, and FTP over HTTP traffic. So the cloud proxy version doesn't support native FTP proxying, only FTP over HTTP. It makes sense because being in cloud, it would be very difficult to, like let all your users know that when they do, for example, when they fire up an FTP client, they should configure the cloud to be as the FTP proxy. Now, cloud web security can be deployed only in transparent mode. So the user is not going to have the proxy configured in the browser. Somehow the user's traffic is going to get redirected to the cloud for inspections, and then is going to be allowed or disallowed. Now user's traffic is being redirected to the cloud or to the towers in the cloud via what Cisco calls connectors. And the connector can be either the AnyConnect Cloud Web Security module. So AnyConnect has a dedicated module for this function. So you install that module on AnyConnect, and then all users traffic, web, HTTP and HTTPS from that computer is going to actually get redirected to the cloud transparently without being configured in the browser, or of course even without the user being aware. Other connectors are going to be the ISRG2 routers, or the ASA firewall, or the web security appliance by itself can redirect traffic to the cloud for inspections. Now, of course, depending on each option has its own different use cases. Why would you choose one over the other? But let's see what is the traffic flow in this case. So again, the traffic can get redirected to the cloud via a connector, which then that connector can be the ASA firewall, can be an ISRG2 router, or it can be the web security appliance, or a software installed on the client, which is going to be the AnyConnect module for that reason. Regardless of how the traffic is being redirected to the cloud, the same thing happens. Doesn't matter what the connector is. What's going to happen is that the client is going to initiate a session believing it's going to speak with google.com. So it's not aware of the proxy. And then before the traffic, the request reaches google.com, actually what happens, that connector, which can be a software installed on a client or the ISR or the ASA or the WSA, is gonna intercept that request and actually send the request redirected to the cloud, to the towers. And then in there, traffic is being inspected to see if the user is allowed, of course, to access that resource, to access google.com. If user is allowed, then the proxy, the cloud is going to initiate a new session, an independent session to google.com. Then the cloud proxy is going to receive the content from google.com, and then the cloud proxy is going to redirect the traffic back to the is going to send the response back to the connector, and then the connector back to the client. Now, web security inspections. So both web security appliance and cloud web security support HTTPS decryption, which nowadays is mandatory because most attacks happen over HTTPS. Because that session being encrypted, it means that a lot of attacks can happen, or a lot of application tunneling can happen over HTTPS. So ideally, you should have a proxy which supports HTTPS decryption. Likewise, WSA and CWS cover all three phases of the attack, just like ICE. So before, during, and after. As you're going to see in a couple, and both web security appliance and cloud web security are going to in the end allow or deny user traffic in the internet based on two main rules. Based on configured policies, like from the management point of view, is the user allowed to request that web access to that specific website? And secondly, is the traffic clean or malicious? So in the end, both web security, let's say, products are going to allow or disallow the traffic based on those two main decisions. Is the user allowed to get access to that resource, and is that traffic clean or malicious? Now, if you look at another Cisco presentation, because I said that both web and email offer protection throughout all three phases. So it doesn't matter which version you use, the same capabilities are being supported. Of course, there are a couple of differences, but in general, the same functions are available in there, close to. So, for example, from the WSA point of view, so it says in here that we have to understand the scheme. We have web traffic from the campus, from the branch offices, from a roaming user, from BIOD user, regardless of the user type. Somehow through the connectors or to the redirection, transparent or explicit proxy, somehow the traffic is going to be inspected by the cloud web security or the web security appliance, which pretty much both options support the same, let's say, features and options, security functions. In the before phase, how does web security appliance offer protection, or the cloud web security? Is that in the before phase, traffic is being allowed or disallowed left to right, the order of the inspection is being performed. So first we have the web filtering rules, which is the users allowed or not to access that resource based on configured management policies. So the management is going to decide if we allow access to websites that contain, I don't know, guns, or for example, what else, advertising, or whatever they want to allow or disallow traffic, web traffic out to. Then if traffic is allowed or disallowed, it's a final decision. If not, then we're going to inspect the web reputation, which means that what is the reputation of the resource being accessed? Because if it has a bad reputation, then traffic is going to be blocked by default. If the reputation is good enough, which means there's no chances there are going to be malware in there. Actually, of course, it doesn't matter if reputation is good or bad. Even if it's good, there could still be malware. But statistically speaking, a website with a good reputation has less chances to be infected. Then if no final decision was made, we go to the application visibility and control, where we control what applications what can the user do over web. Like for example, you're gonna go on the proxy and allow users to access Facebook, but under Facebook you can control what actually the users can do on Facebook. Can they do only chatting? Can they do uploading? Can they do downloading? Can they also watch video content? So it depends. So that's application access, because a lot of nowadays traffic or a lot of applications nowadays are working over HTTPS. That's the before phase. Now in the during phase, so assuming that traffic was allowed to that resource, to that web server, to that website, which means now the user is going to download or request content from that website. In the during phase, first of all, we have malware engines to scan the content if it's infected or not. If it's not infected, then we have file reputation to see if the content which was downloaded it's malware or not. File reputation via advanced malware protection. If it's still not malware, then we have the outbreak intelligence, which means that we have Cisco releases temporary signatures. Like for example, if Cisco says that, let's say it has been known that in the internet there's a suspicious file with a specific size and with a, let's say, specific name and extension which could be malware, but we're not sure, they're going to release a temporary signature which based on if our users are going to download that specific file, there's going to be likewise block the traffic because it could be a malware in there. And then of course we're going to do DLP integration to see if the users are allowed to upload files or not on the internet, and what kind of files. That's the during phase. And of course the after phase, assuming that the traffic was allowed because it didn't seem to be malware, and also it was allowed based on configured policies. Pretty much in the after phase, what we do is we do sandboxing. So we do sandboxing through advanced malware protection, which means we upload the file in the cloud to be sandboxed to see if that's malware or not. And then we do file inspection via AMP as well, which means we constantly monitor the result of that file being downloaded. And candidate threat analytics is going to be a specific Cisco service, which it's like a support service, a different support service, where you speak with Cisco engineers to be able to faster, let's say, detect why an attack happened and fix it as fast as possible. Email security. Likewise, we have two solutions on premises called Email Security Appliance, or in cloud called Cloud Email Security. So the Email Security Appliance, Email Security Appliance, not Web Security Appliance. It's a typo in there. Let me fix that up. So the Email Security Appliance is nothing else but an SMTP gateway, and to maximize the security features which are available through the Email Security Appliance, it should be the MX for your domain, which means it should be the gateway receiving email. It should be the first gateway towards the internet. So it should be the SMTP gateway which actually receives all email traffic from the internet, and it should be the email gateway which sends email traffic in the internet. We have likewise two models, physical and virtual appliance. And the email security appliance can be deployed only in explicit mode. So email security appliance can only be deployed in explicit mode, which means it has to be defined as an SMTP relay. It cannot be a transparent SMTP gateway. Other vendors support this functionality, transparent SMTP gateway, but that's going to be mostly an SP, let's say, solution. The email security appliance of Cisco being is both an SP and an enterprise solution, but Cisco doesn't offer the option to work in a transparent mode. Now, security inspections. So likewise, both the on-premises and in-cloud versions. Both of them cover all two phases of the attack, before, during, and after. And likewise, both of them are going to allow or deny email traffic in the end based on configured policies. And if so, like, should this user be allowed to send this kind of email or not? And based on, is the email traffic clean or malicious? But different inspections are going to be done based on if it's an inbound mail, so traffic coming in our enterprise from the internet, or if it's an outbound mail, which means traffic being sent by our employees out on the internet. Now, likewise, in that presentation, we also have the email traffic flow, like how does it protect in all of the attack phases. So in the before, so how do we prevent the before phase? And of course, we speak in here about the inbound email, which means traffic coming from the internet, because that's mostly what we care about as an enterprise, to make sure we don't get malicious emails from the internet. So initially, all inbound email is going to be scanned against the reputation. Likewise, I'm going to have reputation scores for domains. If reputation is bad, email is dropped. If reputation is good, email is allowed. If email is allowed, then we go to the mail flow policies, which means we can configure there some kind of filters, like I may not want to receive emails from a specific domain. If mail is still allowed, then we go to acceptance controls, which means should we allow how do we control the email traffic back and forth? It's going to be nothing else but, for example, how to call it simpler, is like how many emails can we, for example, if the reputation of the domain I received the email from is not bad, it's not good, but it's something in between, we may not accept more than let's say 10 messages per hour from those domains, and we may not accept more than 20 recipients in an email, for example, because usually a spam mail has a lot of recipients and has let's say has specific hours where the spam is being sent. So in there we can configure a lot of policies to make sure we catch as much spam as we can, and we filter the spam out. If mail was allowed, then in the during phase, we're gonna scan with antivirus engines the content. If it's virus, we're gonna of course drop the content. We're gonna quarantine the whole mail, or only the attachment, or we can, for example, we can remove the attachment and forward the email still. So it depends what we decide at the end. But if it's virus, we have to do something, clean it or remove the file or quarantine the whole email, or depending on what the policy states. If it's not virus, then we do file reputation to advanced malware protection, likewise in the cloud, to detect if that's a new kind of malware or not. Then if it's not malware, then we go to the gray mail management inspection. What gray mail means is it's not white mail, it's not valid mail, and it's not black mail, it's not like spam, it's something in between, which usually this is going to be something like marketing mail. So we know that, for example, a lot of companies have advertisements where they send constantly emails to their subscribers saying we have a new offer for this month on our TVs, or whatever they're selling. That's going to be something like gray mail, because you may want to stop gray mail completely, filter it, or accept all gray mail, or accept only gray mail from specific domains. Like, for example, if you work in a company which deals a lot with Cisco as a vendor, or in a Cisco partner, of course you may want to accept marketing mail from Cisco, but maybe not from other vendors. If likewise mail is still allowed, then we go to the content controls, where what that means is that we can control what kind of attachments can be received in an email. And if the policy is violated, then we take action like quarantine the email or remove the attachment, so it depends. And then outbreak filters, Likewise, a temporary signature with what Cisco believes to be malware or spam something, so something malicious with that mail. It's a temporary, let's say, signature update. Then that if the mail is that matches that those rules in there, we're gonna quarantine the mail temporarily. Then of course in the last phase, in the after phase, it's gonna be the same thing as the web security appliance. So if there was no attack detected, like before in the before phase, based on the before phase rules, traffic was allowed. Based on the during rules, mail was allowed. But still, in the end, may still be malware, some new malware which was unknown, and I was not able to detect it. So then what I'm gonna do is likewise, like in the case of webmail, through AMP, Advanced Malware Protection, we're going to do sandboxing and file retrospection, which means constantly we're going to monitor if the file is actually malware or not. Like how that works, for example, let's say that initially the mail went through, but then like if later on Cisco realizes that actually some kind of attachment was a kind of new malware, there's going to be a signature update, and then the mail and the web appliances are going to know that your AMP solution in the network, Advanced Malware Protection in the network, is going to know that the file that has passed previously, actually now it's known to be malware, so you should take action.